Hi, I'm Morgan Finley, and this is the story of how I discovered that sometimes the people closest to you, your own family, can become your greatest challenge, especially in business. From my corner office overlooking Chicago's skyline, I can see the city pulsing with endless possibility. My heart still races when I think about how far we've come. For over a decade, I poured everything into our family-owned tech company, my time, my creativity, my soul. What began as a modest software startup in a suburban office park transformed into a thriving $110 million enterprise. I felt a deep sense of pride swelling inside me. I truly believed we had built something remarkable together. But I never anticipated how success could awaken such jealousy, even from those who share your blood. Let me take you back to where it all began. My father started Spectrum Solutions around 30 years ago. It was his passion project after leaving his engineering job, and though it barely generated revenue, it gave him purpose. I can still picture him hunched over his desk, lines of determination etched across his face, working tirelessly to keep the small operation running. The business hardly covered expenses, but to him, it represented a legacy he could pass down. I was always the analytical one in our family, the daughter who stayed to help Dad while pursuing my computer science degree at Ohio State. My sister Harper, 3 years my senior, was the golden child, perfect grades, effortless charm, and eventually a student at Harvard Business School. The weight of everyone's expectations rested squarely on her shoulders. "Morgan, you're seriously wasting your potential in this dusty little office," Harper would say during her brief visits, her designer handbag casually tossed on Dad's weathered desk. "You need to think bigger, aim higher." But I recognized something she couldn't see through her ambition-tinted glasses. I saw genuine opportunity in our modest company. While Harper memorized business theories and networked with future executives, I was immersed in real-world coding challenges, feeling the pulse of what small businesses actually needed. My fingers flew across the keyboard night after night, not just dreaming of solutions but building them. During my senior year at college, I created our first original software, a cloud-based operations management system tailored for small businesses. It wasn't flashy or revolutionary, but it solved real problems efficiently and affordably. Dad scratched his head when I first demonstrated it. "I don't know, Morgan. Will anyone actually pay for this?" But when 3 local businesses eagerly purchased licenses within the first week and word began to spread, his skepticism melted into something resembling pride. "You might really be onto something here," he admitted, the corners of his eyes crinkling with a rare smile. My chest tightened with emotion. For the first time, I felt truly visible. That single moment of recognition fueled me through countless challenges ahead. After graduation, I threw myself completely into Spectrum Solutions. I regularly worked until 2 a.m., sustained by cold pizza and determination, often sleeping on the office couch. I handled everything: coding new features, troubleshooting customer issues, creating marketing materials. Gradually, our little startup evolved into a legitimate software company, expanding from local clients to partnerships with national retailers. Throughout this transformation, my mother Vivian would appear at the office, concern etched on her face. "You can't pour from an empty cup, Morgan," she'd say while placing homemade dinner on my desk, gently pushing aside stacks of code printouts. "The company needs you healthy, not burned out." But something deeper than ambition drove me forward, a fierce need to prove my worth, to show my family that the quiet, persistent daughter had something valuable to contribute. After 5 years of relentless work, we hit our first major milestone: $3 million in annual revenue. The achievement sent ripples of excitement through our small team. We were actually making it. That's when everything started to shift beneath my feet. It happened at the TechCrunch conference in San Francisco. Among flashing cameras and industry bigwigs, I spotted Harper across the exhibition hall, captivating a small crowd of investors. My stomach tightened as she glided toward me, her designer heels clicking purposefully on the convention center floor. 2 weeks later, during a scheduled board meeting, Harper announced she was moving back to Chicago. She had abruptly resigned from her prestigious consulting position in Miami and was ready, she declared, to assume her rightful position within Spectrum Solutions. With my extensive business network and marketing expertise, she stated, her voice carrying effortlessly across the conference room, we could elevate Spectrum to elite status within the industry. Everett beamed at her, his eyes shining with adoration. This is exactly what we need, Princess. Your Harvard credentials will attract serious investment interest. I felt my blood turn to ice. The company I had built through countless sleepless nights, the code I had written until my eyes burned, the clients I had personally won over with persistence and results, all of it was being casually handed to Harper because she had the right degree and polished presentation skills. Not a single mention of the years I'd sacrificed or how we'd achieved our current success. In that moment, I understood that achievement doesn't shield you from betrayal. Sometimes it just makes you a more valuable target, even from those who share your DNA. But I forced my face into a neutral expression, swallowing the protest rising in my throat. Creating a public confrontation would only damage what I'd worked so hard to build. So I nodded, smiled tightly, and pretended to embrace this unwelcome partnership. That's how Harper became co-CEO despite having zero experience in software development or our market segment. Everett insisted that having someone with her pedigree and business acumen as the company's public face would enhance our reputation with potential investors. The decision twisted like a knife in my chest, but I accepted it to preserve what I'd built. From that point forward, I channeled my energy into what I did best, developing innovative products, streamlining operations, and nurturing relationships with our most valuable clients. Meanwhile, Harper reveled in her role as Spectrum's public face, handling marketing campaigns, speaking engagements, and investor pitches. The next 7 years felt like living in parallel universes. While I huddled with engineers in late-night debugging sessions and conducted meticulous customer feedback research, Harper was jet-setting to Silicon Valley conferences, accepting industry recognition, and granting interviews about female leadership in tech. The stories she told in these glossy magazine features subtly rewrote history, positioning herself as the visionary behind products I had conceptualized and built from nothing. Despite this growing imbalance, Spectrum Solutions thrived, eventually reaching $110 million in annual revenue. But as our financial success grew, our relationship deteriorated proportionally. Harper began excluding me from strategic planning sessions. She made pivotal partnership decisions without consultation and systematically pushed me into the background, treating me like a dispensable employee rather than the architect of the company's core technology and success. Then came the AWS Re-Invent conference in Las Vegas, the tech industry's premier annual event. Spectrum had been nominated for a Breakthrough Innovation Award for our newest enterprise solution. Harper, naturally, orchestrated an extravagant celebration at the iconic Stratosphere Towers revolving restaurant. The guest list included top venture capitalists, tech journalists, and industry influencers. Every element was calculated for maximum business advantage, classic Harper. I arrived early to help with final preparations, wearing a simple black cocktail dress that felt professional yet appropriate. The moment Harper spotted me from across the luxurious space, her perfectly made-up face contorted with disapproval. "Couldn't you have made more of an effort?" she hissed under her breath. "These are influential people, Morgan. Your appearance reflects on all of us." My chest tightened with anger, but I swallowed the sharp retort that threatened to escape. Creating a scene would only validate her criticism. Instead, I focused on welcoming arriving guests, ensuring the event ran flawlessly. The expansive space quickly filled with animated conversation and strategic networking. Harper glided between investor clusters with practiced charm, her laugh perfectly calibrated for maximum effect. I remained largely invisible, monitoring details and solving problems from the periphery. As dinner concluded, Harper approached the sleek digital podium. The room's lighting dimmed as massive screens illuminated behind her. I expected a standard award acknowledgement, perhaps some mention of our team's hard work. Instead, my blood turned to ice as her opening words registered. "As we celebrate Spectrum's remarkable achievement tonight," she began, her voice amplified throughout the venue and across the live stream to thousands of virtual attendees, I'm thrilled to reveal our vision for the next evolution of our company." My stomach clenched. Vision? What vision? After extensive strategic planning, our leadership council has determined that to maintain our growth trajectory, Spectrum requires consolidated, visionary direction, she continued, as compelling graphics materialized on the screens behind her. For too long, we've allowed technical limitations and resistance to innovation to constrain our true potential. My face flushed hot, then cold as reality dawned. What leadership council? I hadn't been invited to any such meetings. Therefore, effective immediately, I will assume the role of sole chief executive officer. The silence that followed felt suffocating. I could hear ice cubes tinkling in glasses as heads turned in my direction. Harper continued, her voice unwavering. Some individuals excel in technical implementation rather than strategic leadership. My sister Morgan has maintained our systems adequately, but Spectrum now requires bold vision and market-savvy direction. The truth is, she paused, making direct eye contact with me across the crowded room, Morgan simply lacks the business acumen and forward-thinking approach necessary for executive leadership in today's cutthroat tech landscape. I sat paralyzed, a cold numbness spreading through my limbs. I glanced desperately toward Everett, waiting for him to intervene, to defend me, but he was nodding in agreement, smiling proudly at Harper's courageous announcement. Across the table, my mother stared downward, her complexion ashen, fingers fidgeting nervously with her napkin. Harper raised her champagne flute triumphantly. Morgan's outdated technical perspectives and absence of formal business education have become obstacles to our progress. It's time for her to step back into a role better suited to her capabilities. The crushing weight of hundreds of eyes felt unbearable. I sensed pity, shock, and uncomfortable fascination radiating from the crowd. My phone vibrated continuously as the live stream comments exploded. Every sacrifice I'd made, every sleepless night perfecting our core algorithms, every client relationship I'd carefully cultivated, all being publicly devalued before the entire industry. The deepest cut was seeing it orchestrated by my own sister, endorsed by my own father. I rose deliberately, my movements controlled despite the earthquake of emotions within. My chair scraped against the polished floor, the sound cutting through the tense silence. Everyone anticipated an outburst, a tearful breakdown, or a rage-filled confrontation. I refused to give them the dramatic spectacle they craved. Instead, I collected my clutch, walked with measured steps to my father's table, and placed a small USB drive before him. "Congratulations on the award, Dad," I said, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. I pivoted and walked away with my head held high, refusing to give the spectators the emotional breakdown they anticipated. I felt their eyes tracking me, heard the hushed murmurs and scattered applause as I departed, but I never looked back. Hours later, I sat in my home office, the glow of my monitor illuminating the wall of accomplishments, patents, innovation awards, and framed thank you letters from our most significant clients. My emotions had crystallized from hurt into resolute determination. Let them have their celebration tonight, I thought. Let them believe they've secured their victory. Harper might believe she had outmaneuvered me, but in her eagerness for the spotlight, she'd overlooked something critical, something that would transform her apparent triumph into a catastrophic miscalculation. I opened my laptop and began typing methodically, a subtle smile playing at the corners of my mouth as lines of code and carefully worded emails took shape on my screen. Tomorrow would prove remarkably illuminating. While Harper had been cultivating her personal brand on social media and granting interviews to technology publications, I had spent 12 years mastering every operational aspect of our business, forging relationships with key developers, and quietly securing our intellectual foundation. The following morning dawned with perfect clarity, both literally and figuratively. I arrived at the office before sunrise, set up in the main conference room, and waited. At precisely 9 a.m., Harper strode through the glass doors with Everett following closely behind. Their expressions radiated triumphant satisfaction, expressions I anticipated would soon dissolve into disbelief. "Morgan?" Harper's voice carried notes of both surprise and irritation. "What are you doing here?" I assumed after last night's announcement, you'd have enough professional awareness to take some personal time. I smiled calmly, thinking about the comprehensive documentation I had distributed at 4:17 a.m. to our executive team, major clients, key developers, and legal counsel. Just finalizing some transitional details, sister, I replied with practiced composure. Since you're both here, we should discuss Spectrum's actual future trajectory. There's nothing to discuss, Everett interjected firmly. The Leadership Council has spoken. Harper is taking the helm now. Ah yes, this mysterious Leadership Council, I responded, activating my tablet. Let's examine that situation more thoroughly, shall we? I connected my device to the conference room's display system. While Harper was orchestrating publicity campaigns and cultivating her personal brand, I was actually building this company's foundation. There are several critical factors you've both overlooked. I pulled up a legal document with highlighted sections. First, allow me to clarify the ownership structure. I control 55% of Spectrum Solutions. When we formally incorporated 12 years ago, Dad allocated 27% each to Harper and me, retaining 46% for himself. However, during our expansion phase 5 years ago when we needed additional capital, you transferred 12% of your shares to me, Dad. You were attending Harper's Women in Tech Awards ceremony and asked me to handle the paperwork. Their expressions transformed from confidence to mounting alarm. Harper's manicured fingers gripped the polished conference table as reality began to register. That's impossible, she whispered, her voice suddenly fragile. Dad would never. He absolutely did, I interrupted, displaying additional documentation. And there's more. The Spectrum Core platform that generates 90% of our annual revenue? It isn't actually owned by Spectrum Solutions. The intellectual property belongs to Finley Innovations LLC, my separate development entity. Spectrum Solutions merely holds a usage license. I glanced deliberately at my watch. Or more accurately, held a license. That agreement officially expired 17 minutes ago. Everett collapsed into a chair, the color draining from his face as realization dawned. The renewal documents, he muttered, his voice suddenly frail. The ones you asked me to sign last week. I never even read them. I was too busy helping Harper coordinate the celebration. Precisely, I confirmed with a nod. And I deliberately chose not to submit them. Harper's perfectly composed facade cracked, fury flashing in her eyes. You calculating little. I'd reconsider finishing that sentence, I cautioned, raising my hand. There's considerably more you should hear first. While you were broadcasting my professional execution to the entire tech industry last night, I was executing something far more consequential. I was activating contingency protocols. You see, our major enterprise clients didn't partner with Spectrum Solutions merely for brand recognition. They signed because of my technical expertise, implementation strategy, and consistent delivery record. Many of these agreements contain executive retention clauses that permit immediate contract termination should I depart the company. Last night, I formally notified them of my imminent departure. I displayed my email dashboard, revealing dozens of unread messages with urgent subject lines. My heartbeat quickened as their implications registered on Harper's face. Would you like me to share how many Fortune 500 clients have already triggered their termination clauses? Or perhaps you'd be interested in knowing that our core development team, who, incidentally, are employed by Finley Innovations, not Spectrum Solutions, have unanimously accepted positions in my new venture? An uneasy silence blanketed the room. Through the conference room's glass walls, we could see employees gathering in small clusters, phones in hand, sharing the company-wide notification I'd distributed an hour earlier. The news spread visibly across the office like electricity through a circuit. Harper's carefully cultivated professional mask slipped completely as she frantically unlocked her phone, her fingers trembling noticeably. Her meticulously constructed reality was disintegrating before her eyes as she grasped how little actual control she commanded. You can't possibly do this, she gasped, genuine fear replacing her earlier confidence. The company? The company you attempted to appropriate? I interjected. The enterprise you believed you could commandeer with your Harvard MBA and Dad's blessing? That company effectively ceased to exist the moment you publicly demolished my reputation before the entire industry. I stood deliberately, smoothing my blazer with measured calm, allowing the weight of silence to amplify my next words. Here are your options moving forward, I stated, my gaze shifting deliberately between them. Option 1, I exit completely. I take my controlling share interest, my proprietary software, my client relationships, and my development team. Spectrum Solutions becomes nothing but an empty corporate shell, a logo without substance. You can personally explain to your investor contacts why company valuation evaporated overnight. Everett suddenly looked decades older, his shoulders hunched under the crushing weight of consequence. And option 2? He asked, his voice barely audible. Option 2, I replied, involves your immediate resignations. I assume complete operational control of Spectrum Solutions. You retain your equity positions as silent shareholders. You'll continue receiving dividend distributions, but you'll have zero input regarding corporate direction. Harper receives a generous severance package with positive references to facilitate employment opportunities, preferably on the opposite coast. Harper's face flushed crimson with indignation. You calculated this entire scheme, she seethed, her voice trembling. You've been plotting to undermine us all along. I felt a strange laugh escape my lips, but there was no warmth in it. That's not even close to the truth, Harper. For 12 years, I poured my heart into being a loyal daughter and supportive sister while you claimed credit for my innovations. I remained silent while you posed for tech magazine covers. I kept Spectrum's infrastructure running flawlessly while you collected accolades. I didn't formulate this contingency until literally 12 hours ago, immediately after you stood before the entire industry and publicly declared me incompetent. My phone vibrated against the table. The screen displayed another client termination notification. Your window of opportunity is shrinking rapidly, I said, my voice deliberately measured. What's your decision? The subsequent hour unfolded in a whirlwind of activity, legal representatives arriving, documents exchanged, signatures applied, corporate announcements drafted. By midday, I sat alone in what was now officially my executive office, gazing across Chicago's sprawling skyline. The company I had nurtured from concept to industry leader was finally, unquestionably mine. I should have felt triumphant, but instead I experienced a profound hollowness. The corporate entity had survived, but my family connections lay in ruins. The trust between us had shattered irreparably, like delicate crystal against concrete. The silence enveloping me felt more oppressive than celebratory cheers could have dispersed. That evening, Vivian appeared in my doorway. Her eyes were swollen and weary, betraying hours of emotional turmoil. Couldn't there have been another resolution? She asked quietly, her educator's calm barely masking her sadness. I studied her face before responding, seeing the conflicted emotions behind her practiced composure. They left me no viable alternative, I explained softly. They would have systematically dismantled everything I built. They would have erased my contributions from the company narrative without hesitation. She nodded slowly, her understanding evident despite the emotional cost. What comes next? She whispered. I turned toward the panoramic windows, watching the setting sun gild Chicago's architectural landscape. Now, I replied, I reconstruct everything according to my original vision. I spread the detailed technical schematics across my desk, plans I'd been refining for months. They outlined my strategic roadmap, next-generation cloud security infrastructure, artificial intelligence integration, and expansion into emerging markets we'd barely explored. Innovations I deliberately withheld, waiting for the perfect implementation moment. That moment had finally arrived. This time, I would construct something truly revolutionary, unburdened by those who had looked me in the eyes and seen someone dispensable, someone they could discard without consequence. Over the following year, Spectrum Solutions flourished under my leadership. We didn't merely survive, we tripled our market valuation. Former clients returned with expanded contracts, strategic partnerships materialized with industry leaders, and the company finally garnered recognition for genuine innovation rather than carefully crafted public relations. Harper, humbled by the consequences of her actions, relocated to Silicon Valley. She secured a position as CMO at an early-stage startup, far removed from the technology empire she once believed she could commandeer. I found myself hoping this experience had fostered genuine growth and self-awareness within her. Everett quietly transitioned to an advisory role before fully retiring 6 months later. The comfortable distance of retirement finally allowed him to recognize what he'd been blind to for years, that his favored daughter had nearly dismantled his life's work. We see each other during major holidays now. We exchange practiced pleasantries, inquire about each other's well-being, and navigate family dinners with the polite distance of acquaintances performing closeness. The emotional gulf between us never truly narrows. Some relationship fractures resist complete healing. Occasionally, during quiet evenings, I find myself browsing through digital photo collections, images capturing family moments before ambition and resentment corroded our connections. I feel a sharp pang of loss for what we once were, for the genuine warmth we once shared. But these moments of nostalgia inevitably give way to memories of that celebration night, Harper's triumphant expression as she systematically dismantled my reputation, Everett's approving nod as she delivered each calculated blow. Respect, in both corporate environments and family dynamics, must be earned through consistent action, not inherited privilege or demanded deference. They both internalized this truth, but the realization came far too late to salvage what we'd lost. As for my own journey, I discovered something equally valuable. I learned that those who operate quietly, who are consistently underestimated, who work diligently outside the spotlight, these individuals harbor the most formidable potential. We understand how to construct from foundation principles, and crucially, we possess the determination to reclaim what rightfully belongs to us when others attempt to appropriate our achievements. My narrative has become something of a cautionary legend within technology circles, a reminder to never underestimate those who appear unassuming. Now when I deliver keynotes or participate in industry panels, I detect the whispered conversations, "That's Morgan Finley, the founder who." The sentences typically trail off unfinished. They don't require completion. My continued innovations complete the story more eloquently than words ever could. Just recently, an unexpected invitation arrived in my inbox. Harvard Business School, Harper's alma mater, requested I deliver their commencement address. The proposed topic, Invisible Innovation, the Power of Underestimated Visionaries. I accepted with quiet satisfaction, knowing I finally had meaningful insights to share with an audience genuinely ready to listen. Under my leadership, Spectrum continues to thrive not merely in financial metrics but in meaningful impact. Beyond professional accomplishments, however, I've discovered something more elusive: internal harmony. There's profound peace in knowing I remained authentic to my principles and navigated impossible choices with integrity. Sometimes the most compelling statement involves no words at all, just consistent excellence that renders doubters silent. And sometimes, the most satisfying resolution isn't retribution but ascension to heights where even your most ardent critics cannot ignore your achievements. From my office overlooking Chicago's evolving skyline, I reflect on wisdom Vivian once shared during a rare moment of candor. Professional success might feel like vindication, but true wisdom comes from recognizing when to release the pursuit of validation and embrace genuine growth instead. Her insight proved correct. The anger has dissipated. Previous wounds no longer drive my decisions. I'm creating something with lasting significance, something authentic and meaningful. I still possess that USB drive, the one I never fully explained to Everett. It contains a comprehensive digital archive documenting our company's evolution from modest startup to industry leader, with every critical milestone meticulously preserved. I haven't shared it with him yet. Perhaps someday I will, when sufficient healing has occurred, when the silence between us feels less charged with unspoken recriminations. Until then, that drive remains in my desk drawer, a tangible reminder of everything I built, every instance I was undervalued, and the resilience I discovered not through dramatic confrontation but through quiet, determined persistence. Because ultimately, our most profound strength often emerges from precisely those qualities others are too short-sighted to recognize or value.